Holly Harvey Crippen, most usually known as Dr. Crippen, was an American medical ear and eye specialist, as well as a qualified doctor and medicine dispenser. He is famously involved in a murder scandal involving a body in a cellar, his mistress, and a missing wife. After marrying his second wife and qualifying as a certified medical specialist, they both transferred to England in 1897. Although his US medical qualifications weren't sufficient enough to allow him to practice as a doctor in the UK, he continued working there. His wife was an actress on whom he spent lavish amounts of money, ending with him being sacked from where he worked and subsequently hired as manager of Drouet's Institution of the Deaf. There, he hired Ethel Leneve, a young typist. They began working together in 1900, and by 1905, they had already begun their torrid affair. After living at various addresses across London, Dr. Crippen and his wife, sometime during 1905, moved into 39 Hilldrop Crescent, Camden Road, Holloway, London. To increase their small income, the Crippens took in other lodgers, which led to arguments and further separation between them, which in turn made Crippen take Leneve as his official mistress sometime during 1908. The murder and vanishing of Cora Crippen. January 31st, 1910. The Crippens were host to a party upon which Cora Crippen, Dr. Crippen's wife, seemingly disappears. When questioned about her sudden vanishing, Holly Crippen stated she had returned to America and subsequently died, being later cremated in California. Meanwhile, his lover, Ethel Leneve, moved into Hilldrop Crescent, taking possession of Cora's clothing and jewelry, began wearing them in public as her own. Kate Williams, better known as Volcana, was Cora's friend and the first to alert Scotland Yard about her sudden and inexplicable disappearance. Upon these charges, police searched Crippen's house but found nothing. Time went by and police began taking the matter more seriously. They persisted with interrogating Dr. Crippen until he confessed that he had, indeed, fabricated a story about his wife's death, but only to avoid embarrassment as, apparently, she had run away with a lover to the United States, a music hall actor named Bruce Miller. Not knowing the police had been satisfied with his testimony, and again, brief search of his home, both he and his lover fled that night. After resting at a hotel, they traveled to Antwerp and boarded the Canadian Pacific liner SS Montrose for Canada. As fugitives, Scotland Yard's suspicion grew, and 3 more searches were conducted to the house in their absence. During the 4th and final search, they found a human torso under the basement's brick floor, a mass of rotting, dismembered flesh wrapped in a pair of old pajamas. As Leneve and Crippen crossed the Atlantic on the Montrose, with Leneve disguised as a young boy, the captain recognized them as the fugitives and sent a wireless telegram to British authorities, alerting them of his suspicion. As Canada was still within the dominion of the British Empire at the time, Crippen and Leneve were hastily arrested upon arrival, not even having time to leave the ship before being recognized by the police officer in charge of their case, whom, boarding a faster ship, managed to arrive there first. They peacefully surrendered July 31st, 1910. The proceedings of his trial would last only 4 days. Pioneering forensic pathologist Bernard Spilsbury determined the remains to be of Crippen's wife, Cora, by matching surgery marks on a piece of still intact skin left on the remains. Spilsbury also found traces of a drug in her flesh, a substance which, police later discovered, was purchased by Crippen shortly before Cora's disappearance. Things looked bad for Holly Harvey Crippen, and a swift trial condemned him to death, allowing his lover to go free. Crippen was 48 years old when he was hanged in London at Pentonville's prison, 9 a.m. on November 23, 1910. As Richard Cavendish described it, he had spent the previous hour with the Roman Catholic prison chaplain and 2 warders. His plan to commit suicide with broken glass from his spectacles had been forestalled, and now, though unable to finish his breakfast, he seemed perfectly calm. The hangman, a Yorkshire barber named John Ellis, who had spent time with him the day before, recalled that Crippen came across to me as a most pleasant fellow. He was smiling as the cap was put over his head on the scaffold. The drop broke all the bones in his neck, and he must have died instantly. The body was buried in the prison graveyard. As years come by, several investigators, scientists, psychiatrists, etc. have contested Crippen's guilty trial. Lab tests have shown that the body wasn't Cora's at all, some going as far as to claim that it was actually mine. These results aren't fully supported, if at all, by Scotland Yard. Investigators claim no sense in Crippen poisoning and then chopping her body to parts, head and limbs never to be found. Supported by mental health specialists, this theory in part could also suggest that due to Crippen's absence to be with Leneve and Cora's many lovers, she might actually have been the victim of a serial killer or random murderer, regardless of an attempted poisoning by Crippen beforehand. Crippen's case is tantalizing to say the least, and we encourage you to research further if you appreciate a real 19th century murder mystery.